Hi, my name is Tom and I'm on BBC School Report Day speaking to Natasha Devon MBE about mental health issues. So, firstly, why did you set up the Self Esteem Team?
I set it up with two other women, Nadia and Grace, and we did it to try and make this mental health conversation a bit more universal. When we talk about mental health, people tend to confine it to mental illness, and that's definitely part of the conversation, but everyone has a brain. You and I, we both have a brain, and that means that we have a mental health. So we wanted to explore what the basic things that we could all do that would look after our brains, the kind of mental health equivalent of healthy eating and exercise, I guess, and take that message into schools.
And do you think that spreading the word has been really useful in helping dealing with these issues?
I hope so. I'm very aware when I go into a school I've only got 1 hour to kind of change their opinion on something that is really relevant to all of our lives, but the feedback that we get is always pretty good, so I hope that we achieve that most days.
And do you feel that mental health can be impacted by things like, let's say, not getting enough sleep and perhaps being tired and finding it hard to function during a school day? Do you think that's an issue?
Absolutely. Sleep is really essential for good mental health, and it's important to think about this in the right way. So if you imagine that you've got mental illness exists along one line like this, and you've got poor mental health here, so somebody who's really mentally ill here and somebody who's very mentally well here, and then you've got a vertical axis, so it makes it into a cross, and the vertical axis is mental fitness. So these are things that we can do, like getting enough sleep, like limiting our access to social media, like exercising regularly, that look after our brains, increase our fitness. So if you have good mental health, but you have poor mental fitness, it will only take a couple of things to push you down into the bottom half of that graph, and that's the danger zone, that's where you don't want to be.
And speaking of things like social media, do you think that things like this kind of have an impact on people's mental health, like social media and the media as a whole, really?
What social media definitely has an impact on is self-esteem. It affects the way that we think about ourselves and our identity and the way that we interact with others. And low self-esteem is what's called a primary diagnostic criteria. So if you've got low self-esteem, that would be one of the things that your doctor would be looking for if they thought that you were at risk of something like depression or anxiety or an eating disorder, for example. So high self-esteem is a really important component of good mental health.
All right. So I think what's the number one piece of advice you would give to students who are experiencing mental health issues? Is it maybe break away from social media once in a while, or try to get better sleep? What's the number one thing to do?
The best piece of advice that I could give is to try and establish what your normal is. So try and understand your brain, understand what's happening when I have a bad day, what's happening when I have a good day. Try and rate your day not out of 10, because everyone immediately thinks 7. Just, pick a random number, rate your day out of 13, keep a little diary every day. And then on the days where it's below 7, what's happening on those days to push me down, and how can I change that? And then don't be afraid to talk about it. It might be that it's academic pressure. Your teachers can help you with that, but they can't help you if they don't know what's wrong.
So first step really to identify what's the issue here.
Yeah.
And second is, like you're saying, it's important to talk to people and make sure you're getting the help to fix it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And what's the next big project for the Self Esteem Team? What are you aiming on at the moment?
Well, we are unleashing on the world what we're calling our SASSIes this year, and that stands for Set Approved Speakers. So they're all men at the moment, so that kind of balances us out because we're an all-female team, and they each have different specialisms, and they're going to be going into schools and talking about things which are related to mental health, but they're not necessarily the first things that you think of when you hear mental health. So we have a guy who's going to talk about bullying, another guy who's going to talk about positive body image for men, and masculinity and how that plays into it. And we have a guy called Martin who's going to be speaking about banter, and when it's appropriate to use banter, when perhaps it's not so appropriate, why we do it, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. So yeah, in a way you're kind of trying to widen out as many areas of mental things as you can.
Yeah, we're trying to become a place where schools know that they can get really high quality speakers. PSHE and SRE, sex and relationship education, it covers such a broad spectrum of things, and it's silly to expect that your form tutor is going to be confident to talk about every single one of those things. They might be confident to talk about a couple, but sometimes schools need a bit of extra help. So this is about knowing that they can call on us and that whoever we send will be really good.
So do you think PSHE as a subject could use some like extra detail looking into topics, or is it really that they can't be expected too much, so that's why you need a bit of both?
Yeah, well, PSHE isn't compulsory, believe it or not. Most schools do offer PSHE because it's part of what, when Ofsted inspectors come in.
Yes.
Yeah, they'll look for that. So schools kind of know they have to do it, but it's not compulsory, which means that it doesn't get the amount of funding that other subjects do, and you don't have specialised teachers who, PSHE is their subject. So like you have a maths teacher, maths is their subject. You don't have the same for PSHE. So that means that a lot of the PSHE lessons aren't that good, to be honest. Like when you go into some schools, kids are like, oh, we hate them, but that's because they don't have the same money and expertise behind them. But if you think about it, it's some of the most important stuff you'll ever learn. So there's a lot of talk at government level about making it compulsory and trying to improve the quality of it.
Yeah, so really need to be looking at mental illness at a bit higher importance level, or mental health at a higher importance level than we are now.
Yeah, well, without your mental health, what is there?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.